She clung to me like a child drowning, and I, fool that I was, dove in after her. Carl Jung, they fed you a beautiful, comforting lie. A lie whispered in dimly lit rooms, splashed across glossy magazines, and reinforced by every hesitant glance in the mirror. Your instincts, dulled by a culture of ease, betrayed you. You believed wrinkles equated to wisdom. You were convinced a woman's outward appearance reflected an inner maturity. But the brutal truth, the one no one dares utter, is that countless women remain eternally young, frozen in adolescence, not as a cruel judgment, but as a stark, undeniable reality. A reality that Carl Jung attempted to illuminate for a world stubbornly deaf to his warnings. You were meticulously trained to be a provider, a stalwart protector, a man, but no one provided you with a compass to navigate the treacherous terrain of women who carry the hearts of little girls encased in adult bodies. And now, if you're brutally honest with yourself, you've witnessed the wreckage. You've tasted the bitter fruit of her whims, the paralyzing indecision, the fantastical romantic delusions, the suffocating dependence masked as delicate charm, the emotional maelstroms that painted you as the villain for failing to play the role of her savior. You rationalized it as mere immaturity, perhaps the lingering scars of trauma. But Jung possessed a precise term for this: Puella Eterna, the eternal girl. More than just young at heart, she is psychically entombed in a perpetual adolescence. She is not physically arrested, no, but psychologically shackled to a fairy tale world where life should be a shimmering spectacle, a land of effortless joy, and where someone else is always responsible for the mess. You've shared meals with her, and beds with her, and the hollow echo of empty promises. You've attempted to salvage her shattered pieces. Perhaps you even swore vows before witnesses, only to feel the crushing weight of carrying a soul that refuses to walk beside you, a soul refusing to bear the weight of adulthood. Jung didn't merely stumble upon this phenomenon. He meticulously dissected it. He observed that while boys often evade maturity through acts of rebellion and aimless wandering, women frequently seek refuge in elaborate dreams, intoxicating fantasies, and bottomless emotional dependency. The Puella doesn't confront the brutal reality of life head-on. No, she pirouettes around it, forever waiting for a knight in shining armor to magically piece together the fragments she refuses to acknowledge. And if you find yourself nodding in agreement, it's likely because you've already paid the exorbitant price. You've tasted the acrid tang of confusion, the gnawing guilt, the relentless emotional turbulence that arises from being intimately linked to a woman who appears complete, but is, in reality, a fractured mosaic of unresolved longings. And the cruelest irony? No one forewarned you. Not your father, not your teachers, not even those self-proclaimed dating gurus hawking their wares online. They equipped you with superficial tactics, but they withheld the fundamental truth. And the truth, stark and unflinching, is this: you cannot rescue someone who actively resists salvation. Jung posited that maturity isn't defined by the passage of years. It's about integration, the delicate dance between the conscious and the unconscious, the acceptance of personal responsibility, the unwavering courage to confront discomfort. And the Puella Eterna fiercely resists all of it. She clutches to the illusion of pristine innocence because reality demands something she hasn't cultivated: a resilient inner structure. You see it in her chronic avoidance of difficult decisions. You witness it when every hardship becomes your fault, when she flits from one fleeting passion to the next, jumping from job to job, relationship to relationship, perpetually chasing the fleeting thrill of novelty while constructing nothing of lasting substance. That's not mere confusion. That's a sophisticated psychological defense mechanism, a carefully constructed fortress. She's desperately evading the very process Jung termed individuation, the excruciating yet ultimately liberating journey of becoming a complete and integrated human being. And here's the realization that should haunt you like a phantom limb: you were oblivious. You observed these recurring patterns unfolding before your very eyes and mistook it for love. You appointed yourself as her personal fixer, and in that misguided act of selflessness, you slowly began to erode. Because when a man stands in the perpetual presence of the eternal girl, he doesn't merely carry her burden. He begins to shrink imperceptibly. He adapts. He softens. He evades conflict at all costs. He transforms into the emotional anchor for someone who steadfastly refuses to stabilize herself. And he deludes himself into believing that it's a noble sacrifice. But what it truly is a slow, agonizing surrender. You relinquished your own center because you were unwittingly stepping into the vast, unknowable shadow of another. Jung ominously warned, "Whatever you do not bring into consciousness comes back as fate." And that's precisely what befalls men who fail to recognize the insidious allure of the Puella. You become trapped in cyclical patterns, compulsively drawn to the same type of woman, enduring the same emotional tempests, each time clinging to the faint hope that this time it will be different. It won't be different. Not until you finally discern the pattern. Not until you grasp that beneath the veneer of softness, the playful banter, the endearing indecision, lies a deeply rooted refusal to mature. A profound resistance to integrating the harsh, unyielding truths of existence. And it's not always solely her fault. Many were nurtured within environments that fostered this arrested development. Overprotected, showered with praise for their physical beauty, but never challenged to cultivate inner strength. Trained to please but never empowered to lead. And so, they learn to navigate the world through the art of charm rather than the strength of character. But here's where the situation escalates into something far more insidious. Our culture actively rewards it. Social media bombards us with carefully curated images of women who appear effortlessly radiant, carefree, untouched by the harsh realities of life. That's the persona, the carefully constructed mask. Jung elucidated that the persona is the delicate compromise between who you truly are and what the world expects you to be. For the eternal girl, the persona becomes her entire identity. And concealed beneath it lies a terrifying void. And you, the man, the builder, the protector, you step forward, foolishly volunteering to be that missing foundation. But that's not your designated role. You were never taught to recognize her inherent fear of adulthood, cleverly disguised as freedom. Her knee-jerk rebellion against structure masquerading as independence. Her inability to commit spun as a virtuous commitment to keeping her options perpetually open. Jung pierced through the illusion with unnerving clarity. The Puella exists in a state of perpetual suspension, forever romanticizing potential, forever resisting the burden of consequence. She yearns for the rewards of maturity without being willing to shoulder the cost. She craves intimacy but recoils from accountability. She proclaims her desire for a real man. But when that man finally materializes, she panics because a real man demands the presence of a real woman. Not a child cloaked in charm, not a damsel eternally addicted to being rescued. And that's where your guilt should truly reside. Not because you were cruel or inattentive, but because you willfully remained blind for far too long. You disregarded the warning signs. You witnessed her evade difficult conversations, deflect responsibility, descend into emotional chaos at the slightest hint of adversity. And you stubbornly clung to the comforting delusion that it was love. But Jung would label it for what it truly is: projection. You projected depth onto a well that hadn't yet been dug. You infused her chaos with profound meaning. You romanticized her profound need for you, mistaking profound emotional dependence for genuine emotional connection. That wasn't love. That was mutual unconsciousness, a tragic dance performed in the dark. Jung cautioned that the unconscious perpetually seeks equilibrium. So, if one partner adamantly refuses to grow, the other invariably begins to overcompensate. You metamorphosed into her emotional parent, her unpaid therapist, her unwavering protector. You sacrificed your inner peace in a futile attempt to calm her internal storms. But here's the brutal truth that Jung would demand you confront. If a woman hasn't confronted her own shadow, if she hasn't integrated the painful truths about herself, she will relentlessly force you to carry them, and you will inevitably drown beneath the crushing weight of emotions that were never yours to bear. This is the root cause of why so many men feel utterly lost, consumed by rage, even seething with resentment in the aftermath of these relationships. You weren't simply heartbroken. You were emotionally bled dry by someone who stubbornly resisted evolution. You waited with bated breath for her to ascend and meet you in the realm of adulthood. But she was never climbing. She was clinging. Clinging desperately to youth, to fantastical illusions, to the perceived safety of perpetually remaining someone else's responsibility. And you permitted her to do so, not because you are inherently weak, but because you were never taught a more enlightened path. But now you possess the knowledge. Now the shimmering illusion has shattered into a million jagged pieces. And the central question isn't why she never matured. It's why you persistently chose to pursue someone who had no genuine desire to do so. Jung vehemently believed that personal growth commences the instant we confront the aspects of ourselves we've desperately attempted to bury. For women, that frequently entails reclaiming the shadow, those repressed traits like ambition, healthy anger, fierce independence, the qualities society relentlessly labels as unfeminine. But for men, that crucial confrontation begins with seeing with unwavering clarity. By no longer mistaking emotional pandemonium for depth, by ceasing to equate helplessness with genuine vulnerability, and most importantly, by acknowledging that you were seduced not solely by her, but by the intoxicating allure of being profoundly needed. You desperately wanted to be the valiant hero in her tumultuous narrative. And in pursuing that misguided ambition, you tragically neglected your own. You were never designed to be a perpetual rescuer. You were meticulously crafted to lead with conviction, to discern with unwavering precision, to stand firmly grounded in reality, not lost in a labyrinth of fantasy. Jung elucidated that a man who hasn't made peace with his anima, his own intrinsic feminine energy, will perpetually be manipulated by it in the external world. That's the inevitable consequence of neglecting your own inner work. You invariably find yourself magnetically drawn to women who mirror your own unresolved psychological conflicts. Women who reflect the gentleness you desperately crave, the inner turmoil you relentlessly deny, or the validation you never authentically received. And without even consciously realizing it, you begin to construct your entire identity around being her steadfast anchor. But an anchor firmly tethered to a sinking ship doesn't achieve salvation. It merely accelerates the inevitable descent. You were meant to guide her out of the fog, not to become hopelessly lost in it alongside her. But because you lack the crucial knowledge to accurately assess the situation, you endlessly fabricated excuses. She's merely figuring things out. She's been through so much. She's simply not ready yet. And perhaps some or even all of that may have been true, but it doesn't alter the underlying fundamental truth. She harbored no genuine desire to grow. She sought only comfort, escapist fantasies, a refuge from personal responsibility. And you, like countless men before you, tragically mistook that for authentic femininity. But genuine feminine energy is not fragile. It is laser-focused. It is profoundly creative, deeply grounded, even fiercely protective when fully developed. The eternal girl possesses none of those qualities. She wields only the tools of projection and elaborate performance. And if you remain ensnared in her web for too long, she will relentlessly drain your drive, your unwavering focus, your very sense of self, until you become a mere ghost of the man you were destined to become. But it doesn't have to remain that way. Jung didn't merely diagnose the problem. He meticulously mapped out the path forward. Individuation, the lifelong process of becoming a fully integrated and self-realized human being. And for men, that entails stepping into your own authentic power. Not through aggressive dominance, not through inflated ego, but through unwavering clarity. The kind of incisive clarity that allows you to discern recurring patterns before they repeat themselves, that instantly recognizes when you're being manipulated into playing a role in someone else's unfinished childhood drama, that empowers you to firmly say no to carrying burdens that are not rightfully yours, and that finally grants you the unwavering strength to walk resolutely away, not fueled by bitterness or spite, but grounded in the bedrock of unshakable truth. Because when you finally see the Puella for what she truly is, not an ethereal angel, not a destined soulmate, not an intricate mystery to be decoded, but a woman who has never truly encountered herself, never fully embraced her shadow, never genuinely stepped into the fullness of womanhood, something fundamentally shifts. The bewitching spell breaks, the debilitating guilt begins to dissipate, And for the first time in what may feel like an eternity, you begin to experience something you've likely forgotten: genuine freedom. If this is the moment of clarity you've been seeking, good. Let the full weight of that unflinching truth wash over you. Allow the pangs of regret to sink in, not to punish you, but to jolt you awake from your slumber. Because if you've spent years entangled with women who have perpetually refused to mature, it means you've spent years asleep at the wheel of your own precious life. You were relentlessly taught to prioritize superficial beauty over profound depth. You were relentlessly conditioned to prioritize fleeting romantic chemistry over enduring compatibility. You were never adequately trained to recognize profound psychological immaturity masquerading as alluring charm. But now you finally know better. Jung insightfully declared, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But you cannot possibly evolve into that man while you are perpetually orbiting around women who haven't even embarked on their own journeys of self-discovery. You cannot construct a lasting future with someone whose entire identity is inextricably rooted in a desperate attempt to avoid the present moment. Regardless of how physically attractive she may be, regardless of how intoxicating the initial connection may feel, she will inevitably drain from you your unwavering focus, your driving mission, your vital energy. And she will not even consciously realize she's doing it because she remains forever trapped in a fantasy, endlessly waiting for someone else to finish writing the story of her life. But it is not your assigned task to write it for her. Your sacred duty is to write your own epic tale. And now you possess the newfound insight to do precisely that, because once you have witnessed the pattern for what it truly is, you can never unsee it. You'll instantly recognize the telltale signs, how she relentlessly avoids personal responsibility while simultaneously demanding unwavering loyalty, how she desperately seeks external validation while fiercely resisting any form of accountability, how she relentlessly performs the charade of adulthood without ever authentically stepping into it. And you will resolutely cease making excuses for her behavior. You will abandon the fruitless pursuit of unfulfilled potential. You will stop mistaking chaotic emotional outbursts for passionate love, because that's not love. That's merely codependence on perpetual repeat. Jung didn't bequeath these archetypes to us to shame or condemn individuals. He gifted them to us so that we could finally recognize ourselves within the madness and have the unwavering strength to walk resolutely away from it. Excruciating pain is often the catalyst for profound awakening. And once you've awakened, you will never again stumble blindly into those destructive relational dynamics. You'll no longer be the man who is relentlessly drained, derailed, dismantled by women who have stubbornly refused to do their own inner work. You'll emerge as the man who leads himself with unwavering conviction, who sets his own high standards, who sees the world with unclouded clarity. And when you finally encounter a woman who has genuinely matured, who has bravely integrated her shadow, who stands tall on her own 2 feet, you'll instantly recognize her, not because she desperately needs you to complete her, but because she authentically matches the magnificence of who you have become. And that's the only kind of woman truly worthy of your precious time, your unwavering energy, and your boundless love. If this resonated deeply within you, if it helped you to finally articulate what you've been feeling for years but couldn't quite explain, don't allow it to end here. These aren't just abstract intellectual concepts. This is a visceral wake-up call, the unvarnished truth you were tragically denied. And now that you finally possess it, you have irrevocably run out of excuses. Let this be the defining moment when you finally see the world and yourself with crystal clarity. Let this be the transformative moment when you finally begin to genuinely grow. And you will grow now, or you will vanish completely.